Elsewhere, there is an ongoing saga.
Yes.
At Auburn as it relates to Bryan Harsin. We alluded to this on a couple of the episodes we did last week.
Yep.
I don't know if there's really any clarity, but just to bring folks up to speed with what's going on, there have been a wave of transfers at Auburn. 18 guys, including Bo Nix, your Oregon Duck, Bo Nix, have decided they're going to take their talents elsewhere. They're going to enter the transfer portal. Some of those kids have taken to social media complaining about player treatment under Bryan Harsin. In addition to that, Derek Mason, defensive coordinator Derek Mason, has decided he's leaving for Oklahoma State. Austin Davis, who they just hired out of the NFL to come down and be offensive coordinator, was on the job and then suddenly and abruptly decided for personal reasons he's going to go in a different direction.
Right.
On top of all of those factors, there have been rumors, rather salacious in nature, that have also emerged about Bryan Harsin. Frankly, we're not going to get into that here because we don't know which end is up.
Right.
All we know, per the Auburn Board of Trustees, is that they are also on something of a fact-finding mission, trying to separate the fact from the fiction and figure out just what's going to happen next atop the Auburn football program. Bryan Harsin, for his part, I believe is still out of the country, at least was at the time a lot of this was going on, which is really the worst time.
Anywhere good?
I don't know. It sounds like it was somewhere warm.
Nice. Good for him.
But Harsin was out of the country. He was reached for comment. He said, frankly, any attack on his character is BS. So the TLDR version of this, as I understand it, some folks have a problem with Bryan Harsin. B, it was never really a popular hire, and he's still trying to deal with that. And C, 6 and 7, whatever the record was this past year, not going to win over any non-believers.
No.
So you've kind of got this weird push-pull going on. It feels very high school musical to me. Like there's a lot of he said, she said stuff going on. I don't know really if any of it merits making a change atop the football program, but it definitely is something we need to keep our finger on the pulse of because it feels like, especially in SEC football, it doesn't take much. Right? It doesn't take much.
No.
All you need to do is rankle a few boosters and things can get sideways in a hurry. So at least at time of recording, Monday, early afternoon Eastern time, Harsin is still the head football coach. There's been really no indications to the contrary that they're going to make a change. It just seems like there is this mudslinging surreptitiously going on behind the scenes that, as a college football podcast, we at least need to make our folks aware of.
Yeah. So from the beginning, you're absolutely right that it never seemed like the most popular, sensical hire. Geographically, even though he coaches at Arkansas State, he was coaching at Texas, he has experience in the broader region. But in terms of a head guy there, it just felt a little bit out of, left field, whatever. Now, the manner in which he comes in with recruiting as a disaster, with him sort of publicly seeming kind of ornery, and I'm not even talking about the vaccine stuff, but just sort of ornery with regard to the media. And, usually year one's like that honeymoon phase. Like, I'm so excited. We've got a bunch of guys. I can't wait for you guys to see what we're going to do. I really think we're going to build something. Doesn't get it done on the recruiting trail, which I think you glossed over a little bit because you can not like a guy, but see what the next year or two have in store on your 24/7 site. And you're like, well, he's resonating with others. He's resonating with the youth of America, the youth of the Southeast, whatever. And you're like, I guess he must be onto something. He must be selling this vision that players are responding to, and that's a great thing. They finish with somewhere around the number 18, 19 class, which is not terrible, but look around who Auburn plays every year. Look at Georgia, LSU, Alabama, Texas A&M, whatever, and what they're doing on the trail. And so all can be forgiven if you don't like a guy personally, if the current guys on the roster who he didn't recruit, if they don't like him, well, he's bringing in his guys, and his specific vision resonates with a different kind of linebacker or, slot receiver, whatever. But especially in the manner in which Auburn played this year. So they play Penn State tough. And then you look at the rest of their losses, losing to this version of South Carolina, losing an extremely winnable Iron Bowl that they probably should never have been in. But, they have this opportunity to come up with this huge upset. They're not able to close. To lose in the completely choking fashion the way that they did to Mississippi State, to get blown out by a rival in Georgia, to look completely listless against Texas A&M, right? That was the game where I don't think they scored an offensive touchdown. I don't know if you have the schedule in front of them. Yeah, they lose 20-3. They don't score a touchdown. So the manner in which his first season played out, I don't know how, if you're a diehard Auburn fan or donor, it doesn't leave you a little bit sour when you don't have that hope moving forward. So now they're at the point saying, it's the old Joe Bluth. I don't know if you're an Arrested Development person, where he's like, I've made a giant mistake. I've made a huge mistake. And the money at Auburn says, I don't see this turning around. I don't see a path forward. And
Right.
maybe there's some sort of concerted campaign, right? That you mentioned the mudslinging that we don't necessarily get into because it's just allegations of impropriety, whatever. But then you have the player thing. And now I think not every coach is for everybody. And what Bryan Harsin had to do when he came in was probably convince a roster, hang tight, stay with me, don't leave. We're talking about last year. Let me show you what I'm all about. And hopefully that resonates with you. And so whatever percentage of players gave it a year, and you said it was 18 guys, 18, 19 guys, were like, no, it's not for me. And maybe it's because he's terrible. Maybe it's because he truly does not know how to deal with players, or maybe it's a bad fit. I don't know. I'm not in that locker room. Things just don't seem great. It continues. Sorry.
The thing about this is it festers.
Yeah.
It festers. And that's what concerns me. Look, we've been in this business long enough that when you post something out online, you kind of expect that you're going to get both sides weighing in, especially on something as vague.
And there are players coming to his defense.
There are players.
Very vocally so, yeah.
But something as vague as this, you kind of get the full spectrum. And I have seen folks posting about, hey, he's just cleaning the wusses off the roster.
Yeah, great.
And on the flip side, stuff to the effect of this guy is a clubhouse cancer. Nobody wants to play for him. I've really seen both sides of it. And regardless of which end of the spectrum is true, these things just don't tend to go away. Now, if he goes 10-2, then we're talking. Then it's a different story. And then this all sort of just gets washed over. I don't know if that's a realistic expectation going into 2022. And so even if this thing doesn't come to a head now before the 2022 campaign, I am fearful because I've seen this act before. And it just doesn't seem like the kind of thing where, first off, we're going to get that 10-2 season. Secondly, everybody's just going to be cool with it in the blink of an eye. So I worry, and I think it's unfortunately something that we're going to have to keep an eye on for the next couple of months.
Yeah, and it was a roster that, defensively wasn't where it was 2-3 years ago or whatever, and offensively had playmakers, especially at running back, but now you lose a starting quarterback, and the answers at quarterback in terms of guys who've thrown balls, I think we kind of understand what Zach Calzada is and is not. And there's green quarterbacks on the roster who are just that may have been their opportunity. That may have been his buy time year for a little bit of grace and goodwill. And instead, the recruiting trail is disappointing. The roster is turning over pretty quickly. And it has a faint whiff of Dan Mullen. That
oh, no, don't say that.
Well, does it not? I mean, at least Dan Mullen won with the previous guys. But well, that's what happens, where all of a sudden you are in a shootout with an FCS team at halftime and you're losing games that are just embarrassing, and you have Eli Drinkwitz coming out and saying when you reap jackass you sow jackass about Dan Mullen. And it's a hard, what's the old phrase, turning around an aircraft carrier, takes a long time. And Auburn is that kind of program, fraught with the kind of emotion that a program with huge expectations without huge recent results is saddled with. And so man, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know what they do moving forward if they move on from Harsin, like just throwing a bunch of money at Bill O'Brien or something. I don't know. So something to pay attention to. The Auburn football program is never dull. Things are never dull around the Plains.
No. Watch this space for much, much more. We'll do our best to keep you up to speed.